The sacred and awe-inspiring fleets of the Imperium of Man are the lifeblood of humanity. Without this enormous collection of derelict space vessels, the scattered planets of the Imperium would slowly decay in their isolation and defenselessness. Known as the Navis Imperialis in High Gothic, but more commonly called the Imperial Navy, this holy institution is an extension of the God Emperor's divine protection over his people. Trillions upon trillions of human lives make up this massive and rigid structure, and unlike so many of the Imperium's organizations, the Imperial Navy organizes these trillions of Imperial servants in a unified system with millennia of ancient traditions and regulations that have existed since the Great Crusade. From defending Imperial trading to transporting the many regiments of the Astra Militarum, if the Imperial Navy would ever fall short of its duty, the entire Imperium would crumble, which is why a great deal of ink, blood, and sweat has been spilled to codify and train its servicemen. If you were to be dropped in the 42nd millennium and wish to travel the galaxy aboard one of the massive Imperial warships, odds are you would start off as a simple rating. These are the Voidsmen that make up the greater bulk of the starship's crew. They are basic enlisted crewmen that volunteer to ride the tides of space, both to explore the galaxy and run away from the terrible conditions of most Imperial worlds. As a rating, you would receive a much higher wage than what you would receive in a hive world, and you would also get the rare benefit of advancement throughout the Imperial Navy's ranks. Once assigned your very own personal bunk, there is no going back. From that day forward, you are as much of a part of the vessel as the vessel is a part of you. That's not to say that a rating can't leave the ship, but the bond between the man and a god machine will be as strong as the bond between a priest and the God Emperor himself. Almost cult-like, the cult of the Imperial Navy at this level is very dogmatic. One would be compelled to partake of the ship's vital fluids in a solemn ceremony, drinking incense-laced oil so that the craft's essence flows through your bloodstream, just as you would move through the arterial corridors and passageways of your new home. Upon your first day on the ship, you would be asked to swear an oath to protect, defend, and venerate the divine ship that carries you in its belly. This oath is sacred, and it is to be followed even when a Voidsman is on planetary leave or assigned to a separate expedition. Although the life of a rating is simple by many standards, it is filled with a solemn purpose. As a rating, you would fall into one of two major categories, the simple crewman or the armsman. Starting off as a crewman is the most common, as they are the ones who are tasked with the basic menial maintenance work, such as conduit maintenance, bulwark repair, cog polishing, and other jobs that might require some skill and autonomy. Hive-worlders are actually favored as Voidsmen due to their familiarity with advanced technology and the fact that they are inured to the worst of noise and claustrophobic conditions found on most Imperial warships. Although you would be treated with respect, a crewman is limited to specific areas within the ship. Only sections of the ship that pertain to your task will be open to this type of crewman. And then there's the title of Armsman, officially referred to as the Voidsman at Arms. As a Voidsman at Arms, you are trained exclusively in the use of lasguns and tasked with the protection and policing of the ship. These naval soldiers are regularly drilled, both to keep themselves sharp during long voyages and also to ensure the low ranks are kept in line. Voidsmen form the last line of protection should their ship be breached, but are not defensive in nature. They are trained to conduct boarding exercises and act as escorts to naval officers and specialists should they decide to make planetfall. As an armsman, you would most likely be grouped together with fellow Voidsmen at Arms, and these groups would be drilled to work as a unit to defend their area of a ship. These squads are more than capable of laying down hails of lasgun fire, capable of withering enemy ranks and keeping the intruders or rioters down. Along with the lasgun, most armsmen carry a las pistol, concussion grenades, and flak armor. Although these weapons are excellent in close-quarter combat, it is standard Imperial Navy tactics to keep enemies at arm's length and punish them with massed range firepower. Many surging attacks have been halted with a few well-placed concussion grenades or lasgun firing lines. To augment a Voidsman squad's firing power, it is also common practice for one member to carry a heavier armament. The standard choice is a rotor cannon. With a multiple barrel and high rate of fire, the weapon has earned a number of monikers, such as the Whirlgun, the Deck Clearer, and the Emperor's Chainsaw, just to name a few. These weapons will most likely be used on the indentured working class of an Imperial ship, rather than an actual invading force. How this slave class is created is an example of the darkness of the Imperial Navy. When there isn't enough volunteers to fulfill the ship's operational requirements, it is the duty of the captains to send out press gangs to tithe crew members directly from a planet. That means that even if you weren't looking to join one of the ships of the Imperial Navy, you might still get pulled up by a visiting battleship that needs recruits. Penal worlds are the planets favored by Imperial captains, as prisoners are perfect for the jobs that an indentured worker has to do on a ship. These jobs are the deadliest and most grueling. Duties such as hauling guns into position, turning flywheels, and carrying supplies, heavy equipment, and macro cannon shells. Most warships must replenish their crews of indentured workers every so often, as a steady stream dies of malnutrition, accidents, and disciplinary actions. And even though a ship captain will always look for prisoners, when a penal world isn't nearby, they will order the press gangs to rush into Hive City hab blocks or the underhives to collect average Imperial citizens for slave work. In practice, these tides are coordinated with the local planetary governor. But in truth, a Navy captain doesn't have to ask for permission to steal away Imperial citizens. In the eyes of the Imperial authority, a planet and its people should see it as an honor to be drafted as slave service on one of the Emperor of Mankind's holy battleships. There is also an even lower class that doesn't fit into the Imperial Navy hierarchy and doesn't get mentioned by High Command, but cannot be ignored by those living on a battleship. These are called Voidborn. They are the men and women that were born and had lived in space their entire lives, often the children of ratings whose parents died during a space catastrophe, or the offspring of indentured workers who inherited their parents' debt. Voidborn are odd to say the least, often tall, willowy, hairless, and possessing large dark eyes. Their bodies have adapted to life on a spaceship to the point where setting foot on a planet would feel too heavy, the air too thick, and the sunlight too bright for their sensitive eyes and skin. More than a few might not even know that they're in space, growing up seeing the interior of a ship as the limits of their world, and never questioning what lies beyond. Because they live in a constant state of space travel, it also brings them closer to the warp. Many legends are told of how all Voidborn souls are touched by the etheric powers of the warp. Many are more sensitive to psychic powers, and are able to detect the stains of the immaterium, even if they themselves do not possess any tangible powers. To many travelers, the Voidborn is as alien as the Tyranid or the Orc. A natural fear towards them is common, and no one that works alongside a Voidborn feels safe for the first couple of years. These three ranks make up the majority of the population of an Imperial ship, and although an indentured worker can one day pay off his debt or show enough skills to be elevated to a higher rank, the rating is the only class that has any real chance of promotion. Most ratings that are considered basic voidsmen will have the opportunity to elevate to the class of a crew boss for their specialized role. Similar to supervisor roles in a factory, the crew boss is usually the most skilled rating who has the authority over a small group of his fellow crewmen. His authority only pertains to that specific job. Once the work is complete, a crew boss is merely just another rating. The rank that does have an authority over the daily life of a voidsman is called a bosun. They are the disciplinarians and taskmasters in a crew, assigned to oversee the common enlisted ratings and indentured workers. They determine their duties and ensure that they are carried out efficiently. A voidsman's training doesn't end when his position is secured. To keep skills sharp, all crews are expected to participate in regular drills and practice sessions. A steady regime of drills make them an efficient crew. This often means that the bosuns are responsible for enforcing discipline on uncooperative crew members, and are likely to handle that task personally. This makes them unpopular figures, and aboard many warships, they find themselves naturally allied with the ship's sergeant-at-arms, as their duties are very similar. Sergeant-at-arms, or more commonly referred to as senior armsmen, are placed in charge of squads of armsmen anywhere between 6 to 20 strong, with the responsibility of close-quarter action in naval combat. A sergeant-at-arms' greatest responsibility is the keys entrusted to him for the weapons lockers found in every deck of a warship. When battle commences, a master-at-arms signals the rest of the officers to clear the decks and prepare for action, indicating when to arm the crew. Sergeants-at-arms are almost always outside recruits, usually from the Astra Militarum, to ensure that they don't have any prior associations with the current crew of their warship. The captains do this in order to ensure that the senior armsmen give out proper orders with no favoritism. Depending on the size of the ship, the rest of the non-commissioned or warrant officers vary, but they are all connected to a specific task, most commonly the maintenance or firing of a ship's gun. The most common and important title at this level is the gun captain. This is a highly respected position and is only given to a crewman that has had experience as a warrant officer and also has had decades of working aboard the ship, performing the duties of all of his subordinates. They are in charge of commanding a single gun crew. If the ship is small enough, the position will only require one warrant officer, but for most ships, multiple gun captains exist, and they are assisted by additional warrant officers, such as the Master of Ordnance, the Master Gunner, and the Master-at-Arms, just to name a few. The only warrant officer that has more responsibility than a gun captain is the ship's master. Generally, this rank is filled by the senior-most warrant officer and the voidsman with the most experience commanding on his ship. Often the master is tasked with critical responsibilities, such as stellar navigation and keeping of the starship's log. In addition, he or she might oversee the keeping of the jets, hangar decks, and supplies. All of these warrant officers are given their position by a written warrant from either the fleet administration or the captain of their warship. They are the most trusted of the voidsmen and are expected to disseminate orders from higher authority. This tier of officers are the front line of a ship. Without one of them, the entirety of the battleship would be placed at high risk during a void battle or a warp jump. This rank is also the furthest you could ever achieve if you were to enlist in the Imperial Navy. Beyond this rank are the commissioned officers. These are the highest ranked members of the Imperial Navy hierarchy and are either graduates of the Schola Progenium, the most elite school in the Imperium of Man, or come from Imperial nobility. In order to become a commissioned officer, sometimes referred to as a flag officer, and earn the opportunity to control your very own ship, we must first understand that all Imperial ships are created by the orders of the Battlefleet Administratum. Since they work with the Adeptus Mechanicus to regulate the planets that are able to manufacture and maintain these ships, they have the authority to issue commissions to individuals, granting them control of a specific ship and a position as a commissioned officer. The Battlefleet Administratum does not personally hand out these commissions. Instead, they give that responsibility over to planetary governors and Schola Progeniums in their specific segmentums. The galaxy itself is separated into 5 segmentums, known as Segmentum Majoris, one for every direction from Holy Terra. There is the central segmentum, known as the Segmentum Solar. There is the northern segmentum, known as the Segmentum Obscurus, the southern segmentum, known as Segmentum Tempestus, the eastern segmentum, known as the Segmentum Ultima, and finally, the western segmentum, known as the Segmentum Pacificus. All of the Imperial fleet assets in one of these major segmentums is under the command of the Battlefleet Administratum, and is named after that division, so the Battlefleet Solar is responsible for the Segmentum Solar. But because the Milky Way galaxy is so massive, and the Imperial territory is so vast, each segmentum is further divided into sectors. These are regions of space that are generally cube-shaped and contain 8 million cubic light-years of space. These sectors can be further divided and contain multiple subsectors. These are collections of star systems no more than 20 light-years in radius. The Imperial Navy starships of each segmentum are divided amongst the sectors into further groups called battle fleets. To iterate and make sense out of all of this, a battle fleet from the Segmentum Majoris will outrank a battle fleet from a sector, and a sector battle fleet will outrank a subsector, but these fleets seldom compete with one another, based on how enormous Imperial space truly is. Each sector battle fleet is assigned a number of cruisers and battleships, usually between 50 to 75 vessels, and the commissioned officers of these ships are the men and women that earn their commissions from their respected battlefleet administratums. If you are lucky enough to be at the top of your class in the Schola Progenium, the most elite schools of the Imperium, or your family is or is connected to a planetary governor, you would start off in the junior-most officer rank in the Imperial Navy, known as a Midshipman. You wouldn't control a battleship or a cruiser just yet. Most midshipmen are better described as students with an officer rank. Although technically afforded an officer's respect, they are nevertheless still in demanding training to become true officers, and many of their duties are hands-on opportunities to learn. Midshipmen are so called because they traditionally have quarters somewhere in the warship's midsection, far from the command bridge. Not quite trusted with true responsibility, they remain under constant scrutiny as they complete their training. Should they prove successful, Segmentum Command often adheres to the traditions requiring them to pass difficult examinations to become lieutenants, though some have been known to receive void promotions for particularly impressive actions under stress. If you were just an average midshipman or worse, then you would most likely get the position of ensign or sub-lieutenant upon your promotion. A sub-lieutenant is often given the minor responsibilities such as commanding small craft, boarding parties, or press gangs. They are often paired with a senior warrant officer to provide valuable guidance, and in the eyes of their superiors and the crew, they are treated with respect for their rank. For the most part, most of the Imperial Navy High Command wants these sub-lieutenants to succeed and stop watching Pornhub while on the job. Those that did show exceptional work as midshipmen are elevated to the rank of lieutenant. A lieutenant is a junior commissioned officer who is usually placed in direct command of a system's defense ships or its monitors. Many officers in the Navy rise no higher than a lieutenant. It is more common for them to be found acting as second in command aboard an escort-class void ship, as part of a vast bridge crew found on a capital ship, or in an attack craft squadron, acting as a flight leader. A lieutenant is regarded as having true potential and the opportunity for eventual greatness. Some of the most renowned Lord Captains first began to forge their reputation by taking over the helm of a ship when their commander was killed or injured. If they succeed, a lieutenant can expect to advance through the ranks as a third, second, or finally a first lieutenant, steadily gaining more responsibilities as he goes on. However, many lieutenants never make that leap and spend their days serving as valued junior officers on a void ship's bridge. Those first lieutenants who show their resourcefulness may eventually rise to the rank of flag or lord lieutenant, the second in command aboard a capital ship. Though a lord captain's power is absolute, his time and energies are finite. Someone must stand at his right hand, acting as his voice and serving as an instrument of his will. The first officer speaks and acts with the full authority of the Lord Captain, ever prepared to assume the mantle of leadership should his lord become disposed. If a flag lieutenant can prove himself to be a resourceful and competent officer, he may eventually be promoted to a commander and given the chance to command his own vessel. Finally, we get to the position of a captain. As a captain, you get command of your own Imperial Navy warship. Everyone on board is your subordinate, and your word is law aboard your vessel. These figures act as tyrants, shawbucklers, strategists, or saints. The autonomy granted to the captains is only balanced by the responsibility entrusted upon them. Those captains that fall short of their duty or are not seen as prepared to control a capital ship are given the title of commander, a subordinate officer rank, usually in charge of individual escort vessels, or a lieutenant commander, which represent the lowest rank of senior commissioned officers who usually hold administrative responsibilities over some special department in a crew of an Imperial warship. Lieutenant commanders often serve as a senior bridge officer in their area of specialization, but rarely as first officers. If they perform well, they are in line to eventually promote to the rank of commander and have their own eventual command of a void ship. Together, these three ranks make up a squadron, with a captain leading the squadron on his capital ship and the escorts controlled by his commanders. Every now and then, when the squadron needs to break apart to accomplish a battlefield maneuver, a commander might earn the control of multiple vessels, attack craft, or be placed in charge of an orbital station. On the rare and terrible occasion that multiple capital ships are required to take down a foe, the senior-most captain will earn the temporary position of Commodore, sometimes referred to as a group commander. Because most wars don't end after the initial engagement, the rank of Commodore has found its way into permanent use when the temporary squadrons stabilize into regular patrols. To balance out the autonomy of these squadrons, an honorific title was formed called the Lord Captain or a Flag Captain. This rank is backed by the full authority of the Segmentum, or the sector battle fleet, and has command of multiple vessels on a detached duty. Often seen as a disciplinarian with the freedom to use his ships under his control to complete his very specific task, a Lord Captain is often feared by most he meets. His power is crucial when dealing with arrogant planetary governors or petty administratum officials that might be inclined to dismiss the words of a mere Navy captain. For this very reason, many rogue traders have adopted the title of Lord Captain. The Lord Captain is the ultimate decision-maker on matters of strategy, void law, and negotiation, responsible for the lives and souls of all who pledge to his banner. The fate of thousands hangs upon his decision, though a wise Lord Captain takes counsel with his advisors and bridge crew, and listens well to their wisdom before giving his orders. When Sector Command needs someone to orchestrate an entire division of a battle fleet, they entrust that role to an Admiral. An Admiral is given command of a portion of a sector's battle fleet and is responsible for defending a handful of star systems and the vast trackness of space that lies between them. It's rare for an Admiral to amass his starships in one place, as they are generally busy with patrolling Imperial worlds and trade routes light years apart. Perhaps twice in a standard century, the entire battle fleet might be mustered for a punitive strike, or to defend against a sector-wide incursion. To help control so many ships, and more specifically to stay with a group of light cruisers and destroyers during a scouting mission or performing long-range patrol, the Vice Admiral is in charge. A Vice Admiral acts as the vanguard of an assault or a terrestrial force. Incredible weight is placed on this rank, and the foes they are facing are some of the galaxy's biggest threats. The less action-packed role that helps the Admiral is the Rear Admiral, the youngest and least experienced flag officer. He is given the charge of the rearmost division of the fleet as the one that's least likely to see combat. Over time, this flag rank has evolved into a largely administrative post, charged with coordinating repair facilities, refueling void ships, forming convoys, and other rear echelon activities. Time spent as a rear admiral is seen as essential for a flag officer who aspires to higher ranks to demonstrate their facility with logistics and high-level strategic planning. The rank in charge of all naval operations in a given Imperial sector and has direct authority over admirals and their ships is the Lord Admiral. Normally, a Lord Admiral is based at the Segmentum fortress with other sector-level administratum officials, but most choose to base themselves at the foremost naval facilities of the sector under their charge. The Lord Admiral answers not only to his superiors in the fleet, but the Adeptus Terra as well, deploying warships and men to patrols, permanent stations, and reserve fleets in a way that satisfies both the military and the civilian needs. It is a headache most naval officers dread. Only 5 other commissioned officers are above the Lord Admirals, and those are the Lord High Admirals, also called Battle Fleet Commanders. The Lord High Admiral is the highest rank in a given Segmentum Majoris. Only 5 of these august individuals exist, 1 for each Segmentum. Each is responsible for the Imperial Navy's fighting force across thousands of sectors in their allocated portion of the galaxy, or in the case of a Lord High Admiral Solar, the substantial volume of space around Terra itself. The attention demanded by the dizzying array of plans, schedules, and staff under the control of the Lord High Admiral means they are seldom seen outside their towering fleet headquarters at the Segmentum Fortress. Although all 5 Lord High Admirals hold equivalent rank, traditionally the commander of the Segmentum Solar is considered the most prestigious office of the 5. Above these 5 is the senior-most command rank of the entire Imperial Navy, the Lord High Admiral of the Navy. He or she is usually the previous Lord High Admiral of the Segmentum Solar, and is now in charge of the Imperial Navy's interest in the Senatorum Imperialis on Terra, while the 5 Segmentum Lord High Admirals manage the fleet affairs of the Segmentum battle fleets. The Lord High Admiral of the Navy coordinates with the other Adepta of the Imperium to maintain stability in the galaxy. Only the most prestigious and battle-hardened individuals make it to this political position. In a way, it is a retirement from the constant void and a long and deadly career. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. This was Gershwan with One Mind Syndicate signing out.